As lead director of children and young people in the city and county of Swansea, I have to try and help the partnership to address the challenges that we have. These challenges are quite significant, especially around learning outcomes, well-being, and in relation to addressing the impact of poverty. As a result of that, we visited Hull and had a look at two developments, restorative practice and family learning signature, and we're now adopting those within the schools and across the agencies. We are basing everything we do in Swansea on the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. We believe it's important for children to be safe, to feel confident and enjoy life, and restorative practice applies an approach which ensures that youngsters, children, families can actually be part of the process of addressing conflict. That's very much at the heart of the restorative practice approach. And we're already seeing some benefits arising from this being applied within schools and by agencies.
First inspired by Nigel Richardson, Estelle MacDonald coming down from Hull to talk about their experiences, and I think you realise that you've been working partly restoratively without understanding the concepts for a number of years, and I think that's what Nigel recognised in the people that came to Hull. It's the chance to try and head kids off before the trouble hits the fan by creating an atmosphere and an ethos that helps them talk about their feelings and their worries and their anxieties. So all of that suddenly came together because of the Hull experience. But I think also it was the group that went with us. We sparked off each other without knowing that we had a similar nature and viewpoint towards working restoratively, and the fact that we could create a nucleus of working restoratively in Swansea as a city and then fan out across the city was the basis really from the next steps. I think it's getting the children to talk more and more about their feelings and how their day-to-day existence is affected by the actions of others. Sometimes through the harm, but also through the support that they have from other children. And I think it's recognising where the support comes in as much as getting children to understand the harm that they've caused and the consequences of their actions as well. And I think it's building it into what already exists in school. So it's worked well there.
I am the new head teacher in Blaenau Maes, and having been here for a year, I could see that there was difficulty in some classes where the children were having problems settling to learning first thing in the morning. We'd taken on board lots of different initiatives and wanted lots of different things to work, but they weren't having the impact that I wanted on the learning for the children. So coming across RP and looking at the 4 principles, working with each other, common language, fair process and emotional allowance, it suddenly all made sense that if we actually took on these approaches, we were giving the children opportunity to park up the baggage that they have coming into school and then allowing them to settle far quicker for learning. An example I can give you is that the children all check in every day and they give themselves time to tell the teacher if they're feeling sad, worried, happy, and that's the end of it. They seem to feel that once their voice is heard, they can park up their issues, park up their worries and get on with the learning. In the classrooms, the children seem far more settled. There seems to be more time. There seems to be more purpose to the learning. Attendance has improved greatly since we've taken on RP. We don't have the problems that we did have before where children took home the worries from school and then decided that they weren't going to come in the next day. We don't have the queues after lunchtime outside the head teacher's door where there have been issues and concerns. Whatever's happened has been dealt with at the time, because through RP, the dinner ladies, the LSAs, the teachers all have the strategies to deal with the issues that the children have and to have a positive way forward.
Children in my class are now talking to each other a lot more. If there's been an argument, I've noticed that they speak to each other a lot more calmly, almost mimicking a lot of the questions that they've heard the teachers say. They're using them themselves. Certainly circles, I think, has made a huge difference, because in the mornings they're expressing their feelings to each other, and then when somebody says, "Oh, I'm feeling sad today," even if they don't say, one of the other children will say, "Well, can you tell us why you're feeling sad?"
We put our names on the faces for how we feel. We talk about how we feel and why and because. Someone passes something on and they tell them what happens at playtime. If something wrong happens, they figure out how to solve the problem. It helped me because I wanted to tell everybody how I'm feeling today.
It's changed our class really. The whole ethos of the class is just a nicer place to be. I feel like the children are emotionally literate, and it's a place where we all share feelings. They'll concern themselves with my feelings as well.
They're realising that it's okay to say, no, I'm having a bad morning. And sometimes they'll volunteer why, sometimes they'll just, you can see that something's happened at home or whatever. But it gives you a heads up straight away as to who you need to kind of home in on, who needs that little extra bit of support.
We were experiencing a lot of challenging behaviour from the children. They were coming in very unsettled, some very unhappy, and we needed to address the moods and the feelings of the children in our care. So having had the training and put in the mood boards in class, where the children came in and put their name on whichever mood they felt they were experiencing that morning. And it was the children that came up with the mood boards themselves. They came up with the happy, the sad, the angry, the worried and the afraid, because these were the feelings they were experiencing perhaps at home or on the street, on the yard, even in the morning. So we started off with a check-in, where they all put their names on the boards, they all sat around in a circle, and then we went around the circle then asking them how they felt, and issues were raised. Lots of things that were occurring at home came out in a lot of personal information that of course hadn't crossed our minds. We were there ready, as the facilitators for learning, to get in, let's get on and get things done, whereas the children really needed some sort of opportunity to express how they felt.
We don't have issues with children staying off school because they're worried that there's going to be repercussions for things that have happened in school, because due to the check-ins and the check-outs, everything that the children have concerns about, these are dealt with within the school time. I think a huge positive has been that the voice of the child is being heard, and they feel that they're being dealt with.
I love check-ins because if we have a problem, Miss Carr can sort it out before the day starts.
Great.
And Miss Carr asks, if we have a problem, Miss Carr asks us restorative questions like, what happened, how you feeling at the time, how you feeling now.
In the mornings we can resolve any issues before we start the day, and at the end of the day then we're having everybody going home happy. The children now ask for a circle, so if they've had a problem on the yard, they'll come in and say, "Oh, please can we have a restorative circle, can we have a chat about what's happened?" And they're waiting for you to ask the questions, what's happened, and they want to take responsibility for their own actions. So they're not looking for me to resolve the problem, they want to resolve it themselves.
There's been a big improvement in his self-confidence since it's been introduced. It was points where he was really nervous going into school because there was stuff going on at home, but he'd come in and he'd had that little window of opportunity to express himself and just to get all his feelings out, and then they were dealt with for the day. So the rest of the day he was fine, and he's now happy to go into school. There's no problems, and I find he's really, really improved.
We've got the whole school community trained up, and I think that's the same with Dylan Thomas as well. You've tried to train everybody so it's a common approach. It's not left up to the individual. There's a script to follow, but also there's a way of building on the ethos that your lunchtime ladies have or your kitchen ladies have, as well as your regular staff. So that's what we're trying to develop all the time. The more people talk about it and have a go, that's the key thing, is not just doing the training, but having a go. Because at the end, you want to do the job properly as well and effectively. Because our children then come to Dylan Thomas, we hope to have given them a head start.
I'm Deputy Head at Dylan Thomas Community School in charge of pupil welfare. I've been involved in restorative practices since around about Easter in 2010. Once I saw it working, I realised that restorative practices and that ethos was something that would work right through the school, from year 7 right up to year 11, but more importantly, that would help us to get staff involved and to build a community. The children don't feel that they are being blamed, and once you get away from that, why did you do that, they actually start to tell us what's going on, and we get a far better understanding of what's happening and where the problem is. And they work out the solution, and that's what we're always trying to do, is, you know, not do things to them, but actually get them involved, get them to take responsibility, to be proactive in making the school in which they attend 5 days a week a much happier place to be.
We're already seeing some of the benefits arising, both in terms of comments made by agencies when they interact with parents and go into schools, but also in other aspects, for instance attendance and bullying, where there's some good examples already around youngsters feeling much more confident within a learning environment and in the wider community because they're not being approached and bullied.
We used restorative practice because we had a nurture group in year 7 last year that wasn't gelling very well, and one of the children was being picked on. So we did a circle to trying to stop the problem, so we could get them to gel and work better together.
Bullying started to be a big problem for me when I was in year 5 at my primary school. The bullies from my primary school started to pick on me again and got their friends to join in. A few months after the conferences, Miss Jenkins asked me how things were, and I said I enjoy going to school and I enjoy going to my lessons much better, and I don't get pushed away or kicked anymore.
I'm the homeschool liaison officer at Dylan Thomas School. My role is to deal with families and mainly children who are afraid to come into school or a bit nervous feeling come into school because they may be having some issues inside school or outside of school. My main involvement is the conference facilitator. I've facilitated probably about 15 conferences now, some involving just pupils, some involving parents and pupils. The process is that we meet individually with everybody involved. We go through the questions that we're going to be using, and if they agree to it, then we set up the conference and we go ahead and during the conference explain to people that everything we discuss must stay in that room and they mustn't discuss it with everybody else. And I think that's the key part to it really, is everybody that takes part knows that it's not going to be discussed outside the room, so it's dealt with there and then. And it's a fair way of dealing with it. After the conference, majority of the time, well, I always ask if they would like to put an agreement together. Some do, some are happy with the conference and they don't feel that they need that agreement.
It can be a very stressful environment within children's services. You know, we're dealing with stressful situations with families. So I guess what we've struggled with over time is, whilst everybody signs up to that idea, how do you actually make it work in practice? How do you make it that the challenges that, for instance, a school are facing, that they feel supported in that by the work that social services are doing? how do we make sure that the work that social services are doing is supported by the interventions of the police or the interventions of the YOS or intervention of the third sector.
I just see opportunities for restorative practices everywhere. In nearly every case I can think of, there's an application for using restorative practices.
I guess our view of restorative practices, it gives us a framework, a language, a way of deconstructing those difficulties in a safe and supportive way that allows for challenge, but where we have a collective sense of positive outcomes in what we want to do.
I've been a restorative justice coordinator for the last 10 years in Youth Offending Service, and during that time the prime objective has been to try and develop restorative practices as ways and means of resolving the conflict caused by young people who break the law and have an effect on other people because of their behaviour. We offer a menu of restorative actions that can include perhaps a letter of apology. It could involve an act of reparation, direct reparation to repair the harm, or it could involve a restorative meeting of some sort, or a restorative conference.
The introduction of restorative practices in a more formal sense across all schools in Swansea, and again social services, is indicative of how culture shifts can occur, how people's mindsets can alter to work more again cooperatively with all participants, and at the end of the day young people and their families are more able to work through their issues if professionals are working alongside them as opposed to doing things to them or for them.
The child loves the way we go home, feeling happy.
It's just made the class a nicer place to be for children and adults.
I think restorative practice circles are good because you can tell your feelings if you're really sad.
The next step is to train up the children. We've developed a pack that reflects the principles of RP that can be delivered for children, and they can be then trained to deal with conflict themselves, to look at the community around them, to be far more positive about their way in school, to have more ownership about the school. And this is linked in then with the rights of the child and with all the other initiatives that the school is part of.
What we're looking for is the difference that we can make to our community, because it will always be hard work here. And there will always be challenges, but it's how we meet those challenges in a positive, proactive way. The pressures on all public service is going to be immense in the coming 4 years. But I think if that restorative practice works, it will be the cement that holds us together through those challenges and helps us develop that strength of community that we're seeking to develop.